We like to talk a lot about grace on this channel because grace is one of the most fundamental elements of traditional historic biblical Christianity, and yet it isn't emphasized in Mormonism. So sometimes when we talk about grace, we get some pushback from LDS family and friends objecting to the idea of grace. How have you experienced that?
So I just coming out of a very LDS family, I've got a lot of pushback saying that it's the easy way out. So you've chose grace, you've chose a traditional Christian church because it's the easy way out. This is the easy way to do things.
Okay, so the idea in their mind, they're saying like, oh, grace, because we're forgiven of every sin, we're forgiven by everything that Jesus has done, not by what we do. So the way they look at that is like, grace just means that now I don't have to live up to these standards anymore, or
right, like I don't have to do all the good works to get to heaven.
Right.
That what Jesus did on the cross was enough, and that's hard for them. Right.
So now no more giving, no more serving, no more whatever.
You don't need to do any of that because you're already right with God.
Okay, yeah. And so that's interesting. And we'll talk about this in a minute because in grace we end up doing all those things anyway, but from a different motivation. So let's try to peel back a layer here for a minute and understand what's behind that LDS objection.
So, I mean, from some of my family members, I realized that it's that they feel like they have to do the works out of obligation.
Okay.
That they feel like they have to pay 10% tithing because that's how they'll get to heaven. That they have to help the homeless. They have to make meals for their neighbors. And by me saying that grace is enough, I don't have to do those good works, they feel like it's not fair. That they're doing all of these things to be right with God, and then I just say, well, I believe in grace.
Right.
And so they feel like it's just not fair. Like we're not on the same playing field.
They're pulling all this weight, and you're just skipping through the meadow, whatever they think.
Right. And I think the problem too is that they have an obligation to do this, but they're not really doing it with a Christian heart. They're doing it out of obligation.
Right.
They feel obligated to do those things. But really don't want to do them.
They don't want to. And ironically, God knows their heart, right? So it doesn't really count for God if you're doing it at the wrong attitude or,
Right, it doesn't.
so they're not doing what they think they're doing anyway because of their heart isn't in the right place. So let's address the objection a little bit. Biblically, does grace really give us freedom to just go and sin and do whatever we want to do?
No.
How does that? I mean, at first blush, you might think that would be the case, but how do we know that's not the case?
Well, we know that when God has given us this wonderful gift of grace, that we wouldn't disrespect that and, shame that. You had mentioned, like, if someone gives you a beautiful gift, you wouldn't go and set it in the rain or let it be tarnished or hurt. You respect that, and that's why you do good works, is to live a Christ-like life. And to honor what he's given you.
That's right. And it's not, so it's like our good works, they flow out of God's grace, right? They flow out of salvation. They're the fruit of it. They're not the cause of it. They're the fruit of it. Right. So like, I think about my family, my kids are grown now, but growing up, we had expectations of them, that they did certain things around the house. Right. But if they didn't do those things, they're still my kids.
Right, you still love them.
I still love them. They're still my kids. I want them to learn character. I want them to contribute to the family. But my relationship with them is not dependent on whether or not they do their chores.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that something like that maybe relates. And the fact is, we look around, we see that people do abuse grace, unfortunately.
They do.
And I think a lot of LDS people can point to an example of someone they know or they've met who claims to be a Christian and who is living in some blatant, overt, way that doesn't honor God. Right. So that makes it a little harder for us. But that doesn't negate grace.
No.
That just, is about that person maybe.
Right.
So, okay. Well, let me read a passage from the Bible. It's in Titus chapter 2, around verses 10 and 12 that talks about grace and the relationship between grace and what we do in our lives. For the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people, and it teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age while we wait for the blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ. So it says God's grace has appeared, and it teaches us to say no to sin and no to ungodliness. And so biblically, I think we have an idea of what grace really is all about, right?
Yeah.
So now just let me close with this one idea. So your family, someone said that you've chosen the easy way by choosing grace.
Yes.
I think that in some ways grace is really the hard way.
It is.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think that you have to let God lead your life. And so you have to be humble and give up your life to God and let him lead you in that direction.
Yeah, that's not easy.
No.
That goes against everything in my heart to say I'm going to surrender to God knows best. I'm going to really die to my pride and self-sufficiency.
Yes.
And say, look, there's nothing I can do. Jesus has done it all.
Right.
And so that's hard for a lot of people to lay down their pride and to surrender like that.
It is.
Yeah. So I hope this is helpful to you. If you've heard that objection before, grace is just the easy way. This is maybe some thoughts on that to help you reflect on that, because we really want you to experience God's grace in your life. Take a look at the questions below and use them to walk through with this with someone to help you grasp these things. And we just appreciate you watching us today. Thank you.